What's going on, everyone? Sorry it's been a while. I guess the last thing I did was Final Fantasy VII Remake, but it's been a while. If you remember correctly, I did say in the stream that I might be recording the next day or not, depending if I watched Spider-Man No Way Home, and I did watch it, and that's why I did not stream, because I have a lot to say about this movie. And this is not scripted at all. I'm speaking from the heart, nothing else. I don't have a script or anything. And as a quick disclaimer, this is not a spoiler-free review. There is no spoiler-free review for this. I'm sorry. There's no way to talk about this movie without getting into spoilers. And if you somehow can, then you have very little to talk about. Like, very little. So I'm sorry. There's just no way I'm going to be able to do that. So, with that out of the way, like I said, if you don't want to be spoiled at all whatsoever, please stay away from this video. As much as I would love for you to watch it, I care more about you guys watching the film than I do watching this video. So like I said, if you haven't watched it and you do not want to get spoiled whatsoever, stay away from this video. If you're still here, then that means you do not care about spoilers, or you have already watched the movie and you're ready to jump on in. So let's just get right into it. And honestly, I guess the things I should get out of the way first are my complaints and negatives, because there are a couple. They're not many, but there are a couple. So, Number one, the villains. Now, I'm not gonna be a fucking idiot and say that all of the villains have problems, because no, I only have complaints about two of them. And we've seen. We've seen all the villains in the trailer, so really you already know who's in the movie. But if I have to be honest, Sandman and the Lizard got shafted pretty hard in this movie. Like, really hard. Because we barely get any scenes with them at all. I'll talk about Lizard in a second because I have way too much to say about him. Sandman, honestly, his story was completed in Spider-Man 3. So bringing him back and just saying, hey, I want to see my daughter. I'm like, okay, cool. He wants to see his daughter. He wants to return home. But then, all of a sudden, he's like, you know what? I'm going to kill Peter Parker. But why? There's no reason. He has no explanation on why he wants to kill Peter now. There's no reason. There's zero reason. And I kept trying to think of it in my head, like, okay, why does he want to kill Peter? Why? No reason. No reason whatsoever. And I'm just like, okay, dude, you wanted to see your daughter, but why do you want to kill Peter? So, yeah, Sandman doesn't have much to do in this movie. Literally, at the end of the movie, like I said, this is a spoiler, when they cured him, and he got locked up in that little prison until he got sent back to his dimension, I legit forgot he was in the movie until I saw him at the end when everyone was disappearing back to their universes, and he was just sitting there. I'm like, oh, wait. I forgot you were in this movie. I literally said that in the theater. I'm like, wow, you're in this movie. I forgot. I literally forgot. That's how much they shafted Sandman. And the Lizard is much worse, because he has nothing to do in this movie. Nothing. He literally has nothing to do in the movie. He shows up. They give us 15 seconds every time he's in the movie. He's literally sitting in a truck while in a scene in a couple minutes of the scene in the movie. They're trying to come up with a cure for everyone, and the Lizard is just sitting there. He's just like in the truck outside because they didn't bring him inside the house. He's just sitting there, and then once everyone breaks out and gets loose and starts killing everybody, the Lizard joins them out of nowhere, and it's like, dude, what is your role in this movie? And then we see him in the final battle, and we don't see anything. Why does he want to kill Peter? Like, why? Again, why does he want to kill Peter? It doesn't make any sense. Yeah, those two got shafted pretty hard, but the rest of the villains honestly were perfect. They were done so well. And I'm going to get the one that didn't get as much attention as I wanted, but still did an amazing job, and you can tell by watching this movie. Otto Octavius, he was honestly done very well in this movie. He felt very similar to his previous incarnation in the Raimi movies. He was done pretty well, and I loved how he acted when they finally cured him and they gave him the chip in the neck. I really love how he acted because he was very remorseful and he was willing to help. He was like, yeah, I'm going to help you. That's it. It's simple. And I loved the redemption. He finally got the conversation with, I'm going to get to those two in a second. He got the conversation with him at the end saying, like, how are you doing? I'm glad to see you. I loved that. It was great. Jamie Foxx as Electro really surprised me. Because I'm like, okay, I said this before, not on stream, but I have said it to my friends before. When we found out that Electro was in the movie, I'm like, I hope they do him so well. Because he was done dirty in Amazing Spider-Man 2. And they did. They did him right. He finally has character, and I can understand his motivations in this movie. I really liked his portrayal of Electro this time around. I really liked it. There's not much I can say. He's just power hungry. He's like, he feels the power of the arc reactor. He's like, why would I want to leave? This feels incredible. I got my old body back. I got this amazing power, and I'm coming after you, Peter, because you ruined my life. That makes sense, and I appreciate that. And again, the conversation we had with He Who Shall Not Be Named Yet at the end was awesome, and I loved it. Yes. However, and this is the biggest one, Willem Dafoe completely stole the show for me in this entire movie. And it's no surprise. It's Willem goddamn Dafoe. He stole this movie. He was my favorite villain, almost my favorite character in the entire film. He was just done so well. There's not much I can say without you seeing the movie. Like, it's just so right. And I'll explain more about what's it called? Well, Norman Osborn and Green Goblin in a second, while I talk about Tom Holland as Spider-Man, because you can't really talk one without the other, because they're connected in this movie. So let me talk about Tom Holland now. He has done the best in all of the movies he's appeared in so far. He has done perfectly. And I'm a big Spider-Man fan, and I love the home trilogy. But I may be slightly biased, but I'm not gonna say that there are problems with Homecoming and No Way Home, because there are. You can feel that it doesn't feel like a Spider-Man movie, especially in Homecoming. Far From Home, it slightly does, and I do appreciate it. It was one of my favorite Marvel movies for a long time, but I will be honest, it doesn't feel like a Spider-Man story, at least not entirely. This movie feels like a Spider-Man story. And I know that's what a lot of people have problems with Tom Holland's Spider-Man. This movie tries to fix it. And I appreciate that so much. Because this movie actually has consequences to his actions. All of the consequences to Peter identity being out in the world, they have consequences now. And I love that he's out in the open without the mask. He can just put on he has the Iron Spider suit for a long while and just fights in I love the bridge scene, because again, he can just walk around and, his actions have consequences, and one of those biggest consequences is Aunt May's death, and I appreciate that, because it really pushed Peter to the official role of Spider-Man, and I loved it so much. Like, I didn't care much about Aunt May, but this movie really made me appreciate her a lot more because of her sacrifice. About her death, sorry. And being that Green Goblin, Norman Osborn, was the one who killed her, obviously Tom Holland's Peter Parker is angry, depressed, and is out for blood. He's like, I'm going to kill you. Simple as that. And I appreciate that, because it shows that he's broken now. Like, what? He lost his Aunt May. His identity's out in the open. His friends have been attacked multiple times. He's tried to save these villains from different universes, but now are loose and are power hungry and willing to kill him. And he's just like, what do I do? Oh my god. And they finally said the line, with great power comes great responsibility. They finally said it. Oh my god. Oh my god. I really loved it. I'm like, yes, you are redeeming yourself. Thank you. Oh my fucking god. And like I said, I will talk about them in a second. But I love the relationship between Peter, MJ, and Ned in this movie. It really... this entire movie's about their relationship. And even at the end, when Peter's like, "What to save the universe before it completely collapses on itself," he tells Strange, like, What if we do another spell? This time, everyone forgets who Peter Parker is. Everyone. No ifs, ands, or buts. Everyone. He's like, no one's going to remember you. You're going to be completely alone. And Peter's like, I accept that. He completely accepts it and is trying to move on from the end of the movie. When he goes to May's grave and Happy's there, he doesn't remember him. He's like, how do you know her? And Peter's like, through Spider-Man. He's like, yeah, so did I. And I love that at the end, he's just alone. He could have had the chance to go tell MJ and Ned who he is and what happened. But at the end, he decides not to. He's like, you know what? They're going to be much happier without me in their lives, ruining it. And telling them that I'm Spider-Man. I'm going to keep them away. And I'm going to help others who can't help themselves. I'm going to be Spider-Man now. And I loved it. Because now, he's finally Spider-Man. He's not like part of the Avengers. He's not Tony Stark Jr., for those who keep saying that. He's his own thing. And I love it so much. So much, dude. Am I missing anything besides those two who shall not be named yet? What else? I will say this is kind of a negative, at least in the beginning. It really drags on, at least in the beginning. I don't know. It just feels like it drags on for a little bit. But then once we get past the villains when they're trying to cure him and then they leave, that's when the movie kicks off. But that's like the halfway point. But, like I said, now it's time to talk about the elephant in the room. Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield come back as Spider-Man. And that was no surprise. They were going to come regardless. Like, there's no way you're going to bring back these classic villains and not bring back the classic Spider-Man. And I really appreciate it. And I even knew coming in, I'm like, okay, they're probably going to be in this movie. If not, I won't be disappointed. But if they are, I'm still going to be excited. And I literally called it in the theater. When Ned started doing fucking magic, I'm like, okay, I guess he can do magic now. And he does the portal thing, and we see the shadow of Andrews. I literally called that in the theater, which I appreciate. I'm sorry to those who watched the movie with me. And yeah, like, not just my friends, but everybody else who was there. I literally yelled out, Andrew! That's Andrew! And everyone kept saying, what is it, Andrew? And one person was like, no, what if it's Tobey? I said, no, that's Andrew. And then as he started coming closer, I'm like, yes! Oh my god, I literally called out Andrew coming onto the portal. And then we see Tobey a couple minutes later, and I was so hyped because I love Tobey. And Andrew, I wasn't the biggest fan, but I didn't hate his portrayal of Spider-Man. In my opinion, he's the best character in his entire movie. Willem Dafoe is slightly second, and Tom is third. But Andrew was, like, so much better in this movie. Like, I appreciate him so much. Like, his movies are garbage. Don't get me wrong. His movies are garbage. But I loved him in this movie. He was my favorite character in this entire movie. Because you can feel how broken he is. He's like, he even tells Tom Holland's Peter Parker, like, hey, I know what you're going through. And so does Tobey. He's like, when I lost Uncle Ben, I went after the killer, who I thought was the killer, and killed him. I got my revenge, but it didn't do anything. And so does Andrew. He says, I failed to save Gwen. And I did the whole superhero thing for her. I did it. But then after a while, I stopped pulling my punches. He's like, I'm done. I'm going out for blood as well. Don't end up like me. I love how they're a mentor to Tom Holland's Peter Parker in this movie. And I love that they didn't show up in the very beginning or in the middle. They show up in the end, at least during the third act, which is not too long, but not too short. They get the right amount of screen time that they deserve, and I appreciate that. Each of them got to save the day in their own way, especially Andrew. He got his redemption when he saved MJ from falling off and dying, like how he failed to save Gwen. And I could feel his emotion. He was like, he's so sad and tearing up because he got to save her in the end, but failed to save Gwen. I appreciate that so much. And I loved his interaction with Electro in the end. I love that he finally got to save Max, and so does Toby. Toby finally got to save fucking Otto, and well, he didn't get to save Otto, but he got to save Sandman again, and he got to save fucking Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin. He got to save him, and I appreciate that so much, so fucking much. And I love this little detail when Tom is fighting Willem Dafoe in the final scene. He's not pulling any punches. He was going to kill Norman Osborn, and Toby had to step in. If not, he was going to die. And I appreciate that little detail. He's like, don't do it. Don't do this. And Tom learns from his mistakes. He learns from his consequences and does cure him in the end. And I appreciate that so much. That both Toby and Andrew got their own screen time and love. And their interaction with Tom was perfect. I loved the little scene they had before the villains showed up, where they just talk. They're not doing anything. They're just talking. We get to see Andrew and Tom Holland interested in Toby's fucking wrist webs. Like, who wasn't interested in that? We got to see everyone talking about their greatest villains, even though... And I love this little scene where both Tom and Toby are talking about how they defeated aliens before, that being Venom and Thanos. But Andrew's like, dude, I want to beat an alien. I'm lame in comparison. And Toby it backs him up immediately. He's like, no, you are not lame. You are amazing. And he makes him say it multiple times. Like, you are amazing, and you are amazing. And I appreciate that. Because that's been the joke of the town. That Andrew's nothing compared to the other two. And I appreciate that so much because it shows that they really wanted to redeem Andrew, and they wanted to give them all the amount of time and love. And I appreciate that they didn't show up earlier in the movie. I appreciate that they showed up at the end, because this is Tom Holland's Spider-Man movie. This is his movie and his story. They're here to help him. That's it. They got their redemption stories as well with some of their villains, but Tom got his in the end, and I appreciate that so much. I also love the amount of fan service in this movie. We got to see Matt Murdock as Daredevil. We got to see Eddie Brock as Venom in the Venom movies from Sony. Like, there was so much fan service in this movie. Like, what? We even got to see a fucking Doctor Strange and Wanda trailer for the Multiverse of Madness. Like I said, this movie is fan service to the max. And I can't appreciate that enough. This movie was just done well. Yes, it's not perfect. It is far from perfect. But in my opinion, it's the best live-action Spider-Man movie. It completely outshines the other films. Yes, it's not the best Spider-Man movie because Spider-Verse has that title, and it has to do so much to completely take down Spider-Verse as the best Spider-Man movie. But this movie was just done so well and so right that there's not much I can say without you watching the movie. And yeah, this movie is just so good. I really want to rewatch this movie multiple times in the theater because of how much I loved it. But that's really it. That's all I have to say. Is there anything I missed? Because no, I talked about Andrew and Toby. I talked about the villains. I talked about the relationship between Tom Spider-Man, Ned, and MJ. What else? Oh yeah, Jay Jonah. Sorry. Jay Jonah was also good in this movie. Yeah, he didn't appear much, and he was just there to capture footage of Tom's Spider-Man. But he was just done. He was done fine, in my opinion. I think he showed up a little too much than I wanted but other than that, this movie was just so fun. That's what I classify this movie. It has emotional stakes. It has consequences. It has optimism for like the future of Tom Holland's Spider-Man. It's just done well, in my opinion. Like I said, it's not perfect, but please watch this movie. It's done so well. If I had to somehow rank this movie, I'd say a solid 8 or 9 out of 10. It's a really well movie, but like I said, it's not perfect. That's why it's not a 10 out of 10. But it's very well made, and I loved it from start to finish. And yeah, that's all I have to say. Hope y'all enjoyed it. like I said, please watch this movie. Show Marvel the love that they have shown us clearly with this movie, and yeah, Andrew's the best character in this movie. He was the best character, and yeah, that's it. Hope you all stay safe out there. Is there anything else I need to say? Like I said, I do plan on making more videos, but that's gonna take a little while. If you can't tell, I'm kind of sick right now at the moment, so that's why I'm not streaming. I was literally going to stream today, but I'm just so sick. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make the video on No Way Home, and then I'm not going to stream it. I'm sorry. But, yeah, that's all I have to say. Stay safe, everyone. Hope you all enjoyed and subscribe. And watch this movie.